Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Weather on the Go, all your weather coverage. In today's weather forecast, we'll be talking about record warm temperatures as we go through this week and especially into early next week across the country, and a rather significant storm system that will traverse the country from west to east, bringing anything from heavy snow to heavy rain and flooding, and also severe weather to the country. We'll dive into the details in today's weather forecast. If you like detailed weather breakdowns across North America throughout 2024, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below for accurate weather forecasts upcoming. Also, be sure to press the like button down below. It helps out more than you know. So let's look here outside at our current weather conditions here this morning. And again, across the middle and eastern 2/3 of the country, high pressure is in control. So it is primarily dry and mild across these areas this morning. Further to the west, we are starting to see some more atmospheric river type of moisture moving in here across the Pacific Southwest, some rain and some snow moving in and continuing into California, Oregon, Washington State, Nevada, Utah, a lot of these areas out west seeing that moisture this morning. Let's look at our low temperatures as we do start the day off here on your Wednesday morning. And you can see across the north, we are seeing some cooler weather up here across the Dakotas, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, starting off below freezing into the lower and middle 20s. The coldest air is up here across the Northeast and New England this morning. We're waking up to below zero lows into northern Maine, at 11 below there in western Maine, and 13 below up into the Caribou region into northeastern Maine. And even down the I-95 corridor, waking up to temperatures into the teens and low 20s this morning. So definitely bundle up if you are headed out the door this morning across those areas. As we go into the afternoon, a quick warm up, a rebound across the middle of the country. Our first 80s of the year for a lot of us in Texas, possibly even our first 90-degree high there across portions of central Texas as we go into this afternoon. Just incredible warmth to say the very least. And that doesn't end there. As we go later into the week, look at above normal territory we go with our temperatures up here into the northern plains, the upper Midwest, and especially southeastern Canada, the most above average temperatures further to the north. And you can see going through the next couple of days as we go into tomorrow on Thursday, more warmth across the deep south, primarily there into Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. A lot of these areas well into the 70s, if not getting well into the 80s on Thursday. And then as we go into Friday, we have a bit of a backdoor cold front moving in from southeastern Canada that will send our temperatures down a little bit across the upper Midwest here into northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, northern lower Michigan, and the UP of Michigan. Those areas will be into the 20s for highs. But further south, another spring-like day on Friday. The Central Plains, the Southern Plains, and the Gulf Coast, the Southeast, a lot of these areas well into the 60s, if not the 70s for your afternoon highs. Let's look at the precipitation here going through the rest of this week. And you can see primarily dry across the east as we go through today. We are watching a few showers and isolated thunderstorms possible as we go through the next 24 hours across the Illinois Valley. Some smaller hail with those will be possible. Otherwise, the main feature is out west. We continue to see that atmospheric river move in across California and the West Coast, rainfall in the lower elevations, snowfall in the higher elevations. As we go into Thursday, notice we see that storm system moving across portions of the Illinois Valley and into the Ohio River Valley, places like southern Illinois, getting into Indiana, Ohio, and northern Kentucky, and some of that rain will spread over into western Pennsylvania and northern West Virginia. Some of these showers and even thunderstorms could turn strong. We could see some smaller hail with these and also potentially some heavy rainfall. That is all we're seeing as we go into Thursday. Friday, that energy moves off here into the East Coast. So from anywhere from Maine to Florida and everywhere in between, we do have a chance of some scattered precipitation through the day on Friday. We could be seeing that in the form of all liquid, of rainfall, or some frozen precipitation here with some sleet and possibly some snow up there, especially into into interior New England from Maine through northern Vermont, northern New Hampshire, and also upstate New York going through Friday. Looking at our precipitation amounts with our rainfall out there through Friday night, we are seeing some decent rains there across the Ohio River Valley down toward the Tennessee River Valley through that time frame. We are seeing a quick maybe half an inch to an inch and a half of rain across this region, primarily there for Indiana, Ohio, western Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Kentucky here, and that will be coming in just a 24-hour period. So there is some concern for some flash flooding across this region there for southern Indiana, much of Ohio there, western Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Kentucky as we go into that Thursday into Friday time frame. Now, looking at the snowfall prospects, well, if you're a snow lover out there, we're probably not going to be seeing a lot of that with above normal warmth across the country, really not having much of an opportunity to see any significant snows. But I suppose we could see some lighter snowfall events across the Northeast over that next 24 to 48 hours or so, across portions of Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, New York there, getting into western Massachusetts and northeastern Pennsylvania, a dusting, maybe a half an inch of snow, and that's mainly on grassy surfaces if we see any at all going through the Friday night time frame. Now, heading into the weekend, I know a lot of us folks here are getting ready for that spring time frame, and we're getting into the end of February, and it's certainly going to feel more like spring as we go into the weekend. Saturday into Sunday, we have a ridge of high pressure working in across the middle of the country here, and you can see as we start off your Saturday morning, there's that ridge. You can see low temperatures starting off the morning there into the 40s and 50s across the heartland. But to the east, we're waking up colder here with that trough off the east coast. Another cold morning to start into the single digits and teens for the northeast and the I-95 corridor for Saturday morning. But notice, look at the warm-up going into Saturday afternoon. More springtime warmth, 60s, the 70-degree line going all the way up there into Nebraska, southern Iowa, into northern Missouri. And then as we start off Sunday morning, not as cold here. We see more of the 20s and 30s across the northeast and the upper Midwest, and a warmer start to the day across the south here with temperatures well into the 50s to near 60, so a higher springboard of which to start. That means our temperatures on Sunday afternoon will be a handful of degrees warmer there, especially for Oklahoma and Texas. A couple areas could be getting up into the 90s, potentially low 90s in West Texas there, getting into Sunday afternoon. Looking at precip chances going through the weekend here on Saturday, a couple isolated to widely scattered flurries, drizzle across this region into Kentucky, middle and eastern Tennessee. Really not that much happening on Saturday. Going into Sunday, really quiet across the country. We may have some rain, snow showers up into Washington State, up and around the Seattle region, maybe Vancouver up there into British Columbia, Canada. Really not seeing that big of a deal. Then as we go into next week, this is the next big system we're keeping an eye on, the next thing to watch here. As we go into Monday to start the new work week, this is on February 26th, there's that ridge that we've been talking about that will start out west. That will shuffle its way further to the east, and we're going to see a big trough coming in across the west coast and the Pacific Northwest. And what this will do is dive to the south and east across the Rocky Mountains and into the Four Corners region and set up a temperature battle zone across the middle of the country on Tuesday, and then that will swing across to portions of the Plain States going from Tuesday night into Wednesday, and this will enter into an environment where we have a lot of record warm temperatures. So as you can imagine, this is going to be a very dynamic system going into Wednesday, and then that will eject up into southeastern Canada as we go into Thursday time frame here, and we'll start to reset the atmosphere later next week with a ridge again building further out west. So what are we talking about with our temperatures through next week? Kind of piecing it up part by part here. You can see early next week out west, we're talking well below normal temperatures, primarily along and west of the Rockies. East of the Rockies, we are well above normal. We're talking 40 degrees potentially above normal. in some of these areas from the Great Lakes down through the Midwest and the Central Plains early next week, going into the middle of next week around that Wednesday timeframe. Notice that strong cold front trailing that significant system we were talking about. That will make its way eastward, and we're going to see more of the record warmth ahead of that across the Northeast into the Ohio Valley and the Mid-Atlantic. But behind it, we're going to see a nice cool down here for the Northern Plains, the Upper Midwest, and the western third of the country. And then as we go into later next week, that cooler air will shift even further east, getting into the eastern third of the country, and then we'll have that resurgence of that ridge of high pressure building in out west, and we'll reset the atmosphere later next week. So what do those temperatures look like day by day through next week? Well, it's looking more like spring, folks. Look at Monday. You can see the 60-degree line goes all the way up into the Midwest. We're at 63 in Des Moines on Monday, 62 in Omaha, and 62 in Lincoln, Nebraska there. As we go into Tuesday, one of the warmest days of the period next week, a lot of these areas could be 40 degrees above normal, 74 there perhaps into the Kansas City region, 78 into places there like Topeka, Kansas, down into the 80-degree mark there into Wichita Falls, 63 in Chicago, just some incredible warmth for late February standards on Tuesday. There's that sharp cold front here, and look at the temperature gradient. Starting off into Wednesday, we could be in the low 60s or upper 50s in Chicago, but then a couple hours west, we're crashing into the 20s and 30s here as we go into Wednesday. And then as we go into Thursday, the cold air will shift further east. We'll reset the atmosphere out west with another ridge. Temperatures back down into the 50s. But hey, even going into Friday, we see that here. So more spring-like warmth later on next week. Let's look at the precipitation chances in this pattern, because a significant storm will be likely, especially when you have the battle zone going on with those temperatures this time of year. So here's the energy coming in across the West Coast and the Pacific Northwest starting on Monday, early next week here to start the work week. A lot of this will be in cold air aloft, so that means we're going to have more snowfall with this and heavy wet snow there for Idaho, for Oregon, the Sierras again in California, and perhaps over here into western Montana, western Wyoming on Monday. Going into Tuesday, the energy starts to move downstream into the Rockies, so places like Wyoming, Utah, into Colorado there, especially western Colorado seeing the heavy snow. Some of that could be down into northern Arizona, northern New Mexico seeing some heavy wet snow, places like Flagstaff perhaps, Albuquerque getting some of that snow as we go into Tuesday. Then going into Wednesday, there's that system, a 992 millibar low here. The placement and intensity of the low is still in question right now, but the pattern does suggest that we're going to have a sharp cold front move through. So rain and possible severe weather changing over to snow, or at least some snow showers on the backside through the Midwest on Wednesday. That'll shift east into Thursday and start to turn into more of a big snowmaker for southeastern Canada there, for Ontario and Quebec as we go into that late week Thursday time frame. Now there is some concern here as we go into Monday night for some severe weather chances up here into the Illinois Valley. We have some CAPE values, the convective available potential energy. That's essentially storm fuel across this region, and you can see from Illinois, eastern Iowa, all the way up even into southern Wisconsin, seeing that down into Missouri there and into Oklahoma. We have a lot of that storm fuel around even at night, and that could fuel some elevated thunderstorms that could be mainly hail producers up here into southeastern Iowa, north central Illinois, and into Indiana. Really not seeing much more than that as we go into Monday night, primarily just some quarter to $half size hail with some of these storms, probably likely in that pattern. Then as we go into Tuesday, a more volatile situation. Now there is a lot to unpack here, a lot to iron out, so bear with me. But let's piece this together here. So as we go into Tuesday, look at the CAPE values, perhaps making its way up into the Badger State of Wisconsin to around 1,000, perhaps 2,000 joules per kilogram here, and that trails all the way back through the Missouri Valley and the Southern Plains. As we go into Wednesday, that shifts, but not too far east, so we still have that across the Midwest, down into the Mid-South on Wednesday. So looking at this is your lightning flash density on Tuesday. A couple isolated showers, isolated thunderstorms across the Ohio Valley. One or two of those could become strong if we have enough dynamics there for Ohio into Kentucky during the day on Tuesday. Then here's the concern. Now there is uncertainty with this, with the placement, the intensity, and how exactly this evolves. But the latest European guidance that came in last night, the 0Z European model, does show some scattered supercells with an arcing band across portions here of southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois, eastern Iowa down through Missouri here, eastern Kansas, and into Oklahoma and perhaps northwestern Arkansas. In this corridor, there could be some significant severe weather, especially considering the mid-level jet here on the nose of the mid-level jet creeping up into the Midwest. Very fast winds out of the southwest here. The low-level jet and the 850 millibar layer really starting to scream in here. We're talking around 60 to 70 knots across the Midwest and Ohio Valley. That will certainly support tornado genesis if this does come to fruition. So that would be an overnight threat, Tuesday late afternoon through the evening and overnight. Then as we go into Wednesday, that will shift further off to the east into the Ohio Valley and southern Illinois on Wednesday. And then Wednesday night shifting across Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, and northern Georgia. So a big deal as we go into next week. And then obviously as we go into Thursday, this cold front and the storm system will kick off the East Coast during that time frame. Now, this is the proper time to get to know where your safe place is in case a tornado does occur, not just for next week, but this upcoming severe weather season across the United States or even southern Canada at that. Nowhere to go here. If you have a basement, move to an interior room with windows. Top floor rooms you do not go to during a tornado. Exterior rooms are a no-no as well. And also do not go outside during a tornado. That is certainly not good news. So just make sure to review your tornado safety and severe weather safety plans as this upcoming severe weather season is creeping closer and we potentially have severe weather next week. Now, concerning our precipitation totals with that next system next week, so this goes from Monday the 26th through Friday, March 1st, and notice it could be dropping some decent and healthy rains across the Great Lakes there, primarily for Michigan, the Ohio Valley, so places like western Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Ohio, Indiana, into Illinois. We could be seeing some decent rains on the order of 1 to 3 inches, especially with those thunderstorms out there. And then the snow side of this, we didn't even mention that as well. We could see a nice streak of snow up here into southeastern Canada for Ontario and Quebec, possibly seeing over a foot of snow for some of these areas. And then as we see that trailing back into the Midwest, I suppose we could see some snow showers. Probably not a lot of accumulation on those pavement surfaces because our record warmth is really just going to be too much to overcome, but there could be some snowfall on the grassy surfaces as we go into the middle of next week for places like Wisconsin, far northern Illinois, Michigan here, back into Iowa, Minnesota, and portions there in Nebraska. We'll keep an eye on that as we go through next week. If you like detailed weather breakdowns across North America throughout 2024, much like I just showed you here in today's weather forecast, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. It helps out more than you know. Also, make sure to press the like button down below to get more of this valuable information and accurate weather forecast passed along to more and more people. I do appreciate that, and I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their Wednesday out there.